Hey, welcome back again for another NASA at Home Spaceport Series episode. I am Joshua Santora, coming to you live from the Kennedy Space Center, sort of. As most of our agency and a lot of America, I'm working from home, still being really productive, as is an incredible amount of number of men and women for our agency. I want to introduce you to a couple gentlemen who are helping to launch the next Mars rover in just a minute. So we are talking about this bad boy. This is Mars 2020, recently named Perseverance. So we're excited for that. Excited for the name Perseverance. Certainly that is a message that resonates with almost all of us today. And as we talk about the Spaceport Series, looking at the Kennedy Space Center, we are honing in for our world on the Launch Services Program. They are managing the launch for Perseverance here in just a few months. So that's what's going on today. Please make sure to check out all the NASA at Home material, and especially make sure to send us your questions now on the chat window, and let us know what you want to see in future episodes. We're doing some planning for the future, and would love to know what you'd like to hear. But let's go ahead and jump right in here. I want to bring on our two guests this morning or afternoon, depending upon where you're coming from. First up on the left there, we've got Justin. Is it Maki?
Justin Maki, yes.
Maki, sorry, I'm not as good with last names. I need to work on that. And then also we have Jim Bell. Jim, thanks for joining us.
You got that pronunciation right. Thank you.
Perfect, nailed it. So I want to quickly mention the fact that we're talking about a job title I just threw up, dealing with Mars 2020 and imaging. But your full job titles we could not fit on screen together. And I want to give you guys a chance to explain what you do, because it is amazing and impressive, and I'm a big fan just of the work of exploring. But I want to just let you guys take it away. Tell us about what you do, and what does it mean to be an imaging scientist or a principal investigator for MAST-CAM-Z?
Go ahead, Justin. You go first.
Okay. So I'm Justin Maki. I am the imaging scientist for the Mars 2020 rover. Among my several titles, I also do double duty as the chief imaging engineer for the project, and I'm also the MAST-CAM-Z deputy PI working with Jim. So as part of my job, both Jim and I, we've been working on Mars rover missions for a long time, over 20 years, and I've been doing a lot of the design and development of the imaging systems for the rovers. So that includes camera designs and specifications, the system, the imaging system, which involves all the software that processes the data, and then on the rover itself, and then processing the images on the ground. So it's kind of a catch-all title, but I work a lot with the science team. I have a background in science and engineering, so I do a little bit of both, and basically put the systems together and test it out, and then do operations with the cameras on the surface of Mars.
Awesome. Okay, I'll go next. So I'm Jim Bell. I'm a professor at Arizona State University in the School of Earth and Space Exploration. I'm the president of the Planetary Society. If we have any Planetary Society members out there, great organization that promotes planetary exploration and education. And I'm the principal investigator for the MAST-CAM-Z camera system, which we'll talk a lot more about. That's on the 2020 Perseverance rover. So I work a lot with engineers. I've worked with Justin, as he said, for more than 20 years, going back to Mars Pathfinder, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, other missions. And my job is, as the leader of the camera team, is to try to integrate the science that we're trying to do, geology, a little bit of mineralogy, some atmospheric science, and also to help make sure the cameras can support all of the engineering activities that are going on in the road, driving, arm placement, things that we'll talk a little bit more about here. So we have a big team that's composed of a number of scientists, other faculty members, people at national laboratories, students, graduate students, undergraduate students, and that the MAST-CAM-Z team is part of the larger science team overall for the rover, and the science team is part of the bigger sort of engineering team that includes the launch folks at KSC and many others around the country, around the world. So it's a lot of fun. It's going to be a great mission to be involved in.
So let's jump right in here. We're talking about imaging today, obviously with the rover, and it's something that people may not consider right away. But tell me a little bit about, what do we mean when we say imaging? How many cameras are we talking about, and what are they doing?
Okay, well, so the 2020 Perseverance rover has 23 cameras on it. which is the most that we've ever flown. The MSL Curiosity rover had 17, which was the high water mark at that point. But now we have 23. And of those 23 cameras, about 16 of them are for engineering purposes. And there's the diagram there showing a lot of the cameras that we have. One of the big changes with this mission is that we have a next generation engineering camera imaging system. So those of you that know about MSL, the Curiosity rover, we have black and white cameras on that rover for doing rover navigation and drive designation, things like that, drive planning. This time around, and those are 1 megapixels on Curiosity, this time around we have 20 megapixel color cameras, which are quite impressive in terms of their capabilities. We've now taken some modern detectors, we've incorporated them into the designs, so that'll be a big change from previous missions where we will be having these high resolution color photos of the landscape coming from the engineering cameras. In addition to that, we're going to have some high-speed video cameras recording the EDL, entry, descent, and landing phase. So we're going to have cameras pointing to the parachute, which will be able to take pictures of the parachute expanding, deploying, and then we'll have cameras that are looking down at the rover as it comes down the sky crane, and then one on the rover looking up at the sky crane as it's coming down, and then 2 more cameras looking down on the ground. So there's a lot more cameras, a lot going on there, engineering-wise. And then on the science side, we also have improved capabilities for the cameras as well. We have 2 cameras or 3 cameras on the arm, which do high-resolution close-up photos. And then up on the mast, even to get the highest resolution cameras of all, we go to the Mastcam-Z cameras, and that's what Jim and I are working on and what Jim is the PI for. And Jim can talk about the Mastcam-Z cameras, which are also improved over the last time.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. It really is an impressive collection of cameras. And I'll just point out, in case people don't know, there's a couple of microphones on the rover as well. So assuming we land safely, we'll be able to integrate some of that video with the sound, and it should be really, really spectacular.
Hey, Jim, I want to ask
back
about
to the
that.
mast. Oops.
Sorry,
Josh,
Jim, I want to
question.
jump in there for a second. When you say microphones, that's also a really interesting point that people probably don't think about. Is this the first time we're sending microphones to Mars?
Well, it's not the first time we're sending them. They've been attempted previously. They haven't worked. So hopefully this will be the first successful time. The Planetary Society has been involved in previous attempts, and we're hoping, the whole project is hoping to share these sounds of Mars with everybody.
Awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just wanted to ask
No,
that
it's
point
all
of
right.
clarity.
It's really important. But to go back to the Mastcam-Zs, the 2 main science cameras up on the top of the mast, they're very much very similar to the cameras on the Curiosity rover. They're sort of evolutionary from those cameras. Curiosity has 1 wide-angle camera that can see the landscape in wide angle, 1 telephoto camera that can kind of zoom in. So kind of a little bit of myopic vision. It makes it difficult, not impossible, but difficult to get stereo. So the innovation that we're adding now with Perseverance and Mastcam-Z is that each camera is a zoom camera. So they can go from both wide angle, give us a wide angle stereo view, to both telephoto, zooming in really close at the rover's landscape right in front or the distant horizon. And we'll be able to have matched focal length to be able to make 3D stereo anywhere we look. And so we're anticipating doing a lot more 3D kind of topographic reconstructions, digital terrain models, simulated flyovers of the landscape and that kind of stuff at the highest resolution that Mastcam-Z offers.
So I want to ask that question, kind of thinking about Curiosity, obviously being on Mars already, exploring, and just people's general interest. What should people expect to see? Obviously, we've seen some really cool things come from Curiosity. There was recently a giant panorama that was, I think it's one of like the largest pixel images ever. We've seen the beautiful selfie images that it took with its robotic arm hanging out there. So what are people going to get a chance to see that they've never seen before?
Well, I think certainly we'll be doing a lot of that same kind of stuff, and we should show some pictures of some of the equipment and testing that allow us to do that kind of stuff as well. But I think the big, here's a nice shot of one of the Mastcam-Z, both the Mastcam-Z cameras. And just for scale, it's hard to tell the scale. It's sort of like maybe about the size of a can of tennis balls that you would open some new tennis balls, about that size. And all the zoom capability is inside the kind of gold cylinder there. But I think it's going to be a combination of things that'll be new. The 3D capability, certainly, the high resolution capability that Justin mentioned for the engineering cameras, and maybe you could show some of the lab testing data, and Justin can talk about how we're able to do the work ahead of time to make sure we can get those really good 3D views.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So the cameras that we put on the rovers are, they're not like the cameras on your iPhone or the cameras that you would go buy in the store. And one of the reasons is because these are very carefully calibrated, because they're scientific instruments, basically, that we use to measure the sizes and distances of things. So that requires a very careful calibration to understand when we do see an image, how we can interpret the scale, how we can do the stereo data that Jim was mentioning, because you have a left camera and a right camera, and then you take a picture from each, and then you can basically project rays out into 3D space and intersect those rays. It's called triangulation, and that's a technique that we use quite a bit to do.
Same thing our eyes and brain are doing all the time. Right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. In fact, it's very similar. In fact, humans are extremely good at doing image processing. Just average person can interpret thousands of objects and the distances without even thinking about it. It's actually kind of amazing. So we have to implement that same capability on the rover. It's called machine vision or robotic vision. And it takes a fair amount of processing power to do that. And if you, I don't know if we can show the pictures of the calibration, but it requires a lot of careful calibration in the laboratory. And there's a picture of some of our team members there from SKMZ. That's a radiometric calibration picture there, where we also have to measure the ability of the cameras to detect light and how sensitive it is, so that when we see certain spectral signatures, that we're able to interpret that.
So we get the colors right. Exactly.
Yes, and get the colors right, which is very important, as everybody knows, because everyone's used to it now. Their cameras that they've purchased, the smartphone cameras are very good at color, have very good color capabilities. There's a lot of work that goes behind that you don't see when you turn on your smartphone. So this is sort of a behind-the-scenes look at what we have to do to get these cameras ready. And here's a picture of a geometric target, which is the way that we do the calibration that I talked about, where the very careful geometric, every single pixel in an image, we know exactly where that pixel points. And so if we have a 2-megapixel camera, we have 2 million vectors that tell us where all those pixels are pointing to. And in the case of the engineering cameras, we have 20 million vectors per camera. So there's a lot of careful calibration. I think the next photo shows let's see what the next one is. There we go. There's another target there where we also have to measure the capability of the focus and the sharpness of the cameras. With MaskMZ, that's especially important because it's one of our highest resolution imagers that we have. And then when the rovers all get, or the cameras all get delivered to the rover, I think the next photo that we have shows the alignment measurements that we do. Oh, sorry, there's another photo. That's
the engineering model before they finished all the wiring harnessing. Yeah.
And you can imagine there's a lot of wires that have to be all checked and double checked. That's what that photo is. And I think the next picture is the picture where the cameras are now mounted on the rover itself, and we're taking a picture of a target, which for us is sort of the sign that I don't know if we have that photo.
There you go. There's the one.
There's the photo.
That's the one.
So this picture here is a sign that we're approaching the end of our integration phase. What that means is that all the cameras have been mounted on the rover, and we put one of these geometric targets down on the floor, and then we acquire images of that target. And I'm not sure if you can make it out in the webcast, but that particular target contains 40 by 40 dot, 1,600 dots on it, and we measure the position of all those dots in the real world, which we call the real world 3D space. And then we map that back into the two-dimensional space of the cameras. And all the cameras, or a majority of the cameras on the rover, look at that target, and then we know exactly how everything is aligned. So we're really excited about this. We're really excited about the mission. We're excited about the new capabilities on all the cameras, especially MaskMZ. Jim and I have been working on it for many years now. And I don't know if, Jim, you want to talk a little bit more about MaskMZ and its capabilities?
Maybe just, Joshua, can you show that zoom animation? This is some data that we took with the MaskMZ
Let
system.
me jump in for just a second, though. I want
the laboratory window of the colleagues that we work with at Malin Space Science Systems in San Diego.
Clean room.
In the clean room, they look out the window of the clean room, and we're able to zoom onto some houses off in a distant ridge, and those houses are about 1 kilometer away. So you can see the wide angle capability to the telephoto capability of the cameras. So we'll really be able to zoom in on the world. Of course, the world will be Mars. The world will be Jezero Crater, this amazing landing site where there's a delta that's coming down from a crater rim, and there was a lake and a shallow water environment, and we can see interesting mineral signatures from orbit. And of course, we're going to try to find out if we can find more evidence about the past habitability and the past evidence for life on Mars. So we're super excited about this mission.
So we had a question coming from social, wanted to ask, how fast will it take for the images to get back to Earth? So obviously we've got several months of flight there, but once we land, how long until we start getting these beautiful images back to Earth?
Well, I can take that one, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we land, just like on MSL, we actually acquire some images right after we land from the HAZ cams. Those are the cameras that I don't know if we have the picture of it, but they're mounted to the rover body, fixed mounted, and they're kind of on the underside. And so we'll get pictures from those cameras right away.
Super wide angle.
Very wide angle fisheye lenses, over 130-degree field of view. So they will catch the area right around the rover. Depending on the lengths, those could come down right away, or they'll come down in the first communications pass after landing, which will be within a couple hours. So those will be the first pictures. The covers on those cameras will likely they'll still be deployed, and there will likely be debris on the covers, so they may be a little dirty, as you've seen on some of our other previous landings. But those images will be the first ones, and then within a day or two, or a sol, called a Martian days, a sol, the rover mast deploys. That's that white mast that deploys up like this and can point the cameras around like that. That'll deploy, and then we'll start to get our full color panoramas from the surface. So it'll be within a day or two, we should have some really nice color pictures from the surface of Mars.
And then we'll go into this mode of every morning the Earth will communicate a set of commands to the rover. The rover will go off and execute those commands, and when one of the orbiters, NASA orbiters, passes overhead, or the European orbiter passes overhead, we'll relay the data back and back to the Earth. So some days we'll get a few images, some days we'll get hundreds of images. Just depends on whether we're doing a big panorama. Some days we'll get other kinds of data from the many other instruments that the rover's carrying, including this so-called squiggly line instruments. So it'll be a mixture of all that data coming back daily. And of course, the team, at least for the first three months or so, will be living on Mars time at JPL, with our time slowly shifting through the Earth day, because the Mars day is 40 minutes longer than the Earth day. So it'll be crazy, it'll be wonderful, and really exciting, and we're really looking forward to sharing it with everybody.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, Jim, Justin, appreciate you both. Good luck to both of you. Obviously, we're super excited to see this thing fly. And then before you know it, we'll be on Mars once again with a brand new rover and brand new images.
Yeah,
thank you.
Launching in mid-July, February 18th, 2021 landing. It's going to be exciting. Be there.
Mark your calendar. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right. So thank you so much for those that submitted questions and are watching online. Please feel free to continue submitting questions. Also, be sure to let us know what you'd like to see on future episodes. Want to hit a couple other topics like I normally do. Specifically, I want to hit on NASA at home. So lots more products besides our Spaceport series here. So you can go to the website nasa.gov/NASA at home and check out all that's there. So highlighting a couple specific things, or one specific thing today. Inside the videos section, there's some really cool ultra high definition video content you can go look at. Specifically, there's this really awesome video talking about how we're going to the moon. It's a 4K feature, basically looking at we were on the moon, we're going back to the moon, and how we're doing that through the Artemis program there. So super exciting to see that all playing out. Also want to highlight a few social media things for you. Specifically, we've got some exciting things happening this past week. We had a huge announcement getting ready to assign some flights for science to be done in advance of sustainable presence on the moon. We're hoping to have boots on the moon, first woman and next man, 2024, and then sustainable presence, 2028. That is the target, and we are headed there full steam ahead. Next up, we wanted to say goodbye to the Dragon 1. It completed its final cargo resupply mission. Dragon 2 will be coming online later this year. We're excited for that, but certainly another page turned on the history books, an exciting one, an eventful one, and a very productive one at that. And then last but certainly not least, this is the week that we celebrate Apollo 13 and a successful failure of finding out what NASA's really made of. That famous line, failure is not an option, that is what we certainly lived by in that moment. And we are proud to say that all those men came home safely. So cool history there. There's lots of things on TV today, lots of things online you can find there. Mr. Bridenstine, our administrator, giving a shout out to a documentary that was done on bringing those guys home safely. That's going to do all for us here today. From the Kennedy Space Center, sort of, I'm Joshua Santora. We'll see you next time. And remember, even the sky isn't the limit.